Hey, Leda.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting about our new Rustburg Route 24 corridor improvement study. We're so glad to have you all with us. My name is Ada Hunsberger, and I'm a regional planner with the Central Virginia Planning District Commission. And I'd just like to introduce you to our other panelists tonight. We have Bill Wench from EPR, joined with his team, Phil White and Justin Cooner. We have Mr. Paul Harvey from Campbell County, and we have David Cook and Rick Youngblood from Virginia Department of Transportation. So just a few housekeeping notes before we get started here. Next slide. So as you can see on your screen, just a couple of instructions on how you can use this platform. If you have joined by phone, you will have to go on your screen to see your audio pin to unmute yourself. Otherwise, you can unmute yourself in the top small green button here in your screen that says mute or unmute. And then you have some other capabilities here, including raising your hand. You should use this feature if you have a question, and we will be able to unmute you so that you can ask your question. Otherwise, you're able to use the question and answers feature below, and you can type in your question and we will respond back accordingly. This meeting will also be recorded, so if you would like to view it at a later time, you will be able to do that. If you'd like to share it with others, you will be able to do that, and that will be posted on our project website at cvtpo.org. So with that, we will get started. So the project purpose and scope, this is a VDOT funded project which is being administered by the Central Virginia Transportation Planning Organization. And really the need for this study has been increased by regional and local traffic, the growth that's projected. And so the study will look at traffic conditions, consider safety improvements and ways to increase walkability and multimodal access. And the study will identify these improvements, which will set the village up for funding opportunities in the future. So this initial meeting really is to get your feedback on the issues that you have seen and the concerns that you may have, and then we can go forward in identifying what improvements can be made. So starting here, we're in the initial phase, which you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, which is doing the initial traffic analysis. We will go on to create the study and make plans and seek funding for those, and then eventually get to construction. So we're in the pretty early phases of the project, and this is the best time to start getting your feedback on what you would like to see in the future. So I'm going to hand it over to Bill, who's going to continue on.
Okay, thanks, Ada. Yeah, as we go through the presentation tonight, really the purpose of this is to get your input. So if you would, please think about questions you might have and the type of input you might have. What concerns you about the corridor? Would you want to bike and walk more in the corridor if it was more accommodating? Are there specific locations that are of concern? And just overall, what kind of ideas might you have for improving the quality of the corridor, in terms of congestion reduction, safety, and the ability to walk and bicycle in the corridor, and whatever else comes to mind. That's what we want to hear. So thinking about Rustburg, let's start really high level here. The town has been there quite a while. It's since 1784.
Looks like Bill might have some connectivity. Is anyone else getting that? Some connectivity issues?
Not hearing Bill either.
Okay.
I can continue on for where Bill left off, and then once he jumps back in, we will let him go here. But just a little history and context of Rustburg. It's been here since 1784 when Jeremiah Russ donated the land for a courthouse and a jail. And the village of Rustburg has grown to include a complex of administrative buildings, local businesses, and nearly 1,500 residents. The village is designated as an activity center in the Campbell County Comprehensive Plan, which indicates that it draws people.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I guess here we are in the internet days of these meetings, but when we think more about the village area, it's important to note that it sits at the intersection of two important regional corridors. That's Route 24 and Route 501. We are projecting traffic growth. The yellow numbers in the little yellow circle there indicate how many vehicles a day, two-way traffic. So right through the village area, we see about 10,000 vehicles a day. And over the next 20, 25 years, we're projecting that that's going to grow to over 12,000, near 13,000 vehicles a day. Similarly, on Brookneal Highway, there's over 7,000 cars a day now, and that's going to continue to grow up into that 8,000, 9,000 vehicles per day range. So you see the general growth is occurring, and we want to plan for that accordingly. This study is going to focus on, next slide. Next slide, Phil. Really focus on 6 main intersections, starting at the southwest down there, where Brookneal Highway meets Village Highway. It comes on through the corridor to the major intersections within, including Carden, 501, Campbell Highway, and out to Red House Road on the east side. So these are the main intersections we're focusing on. However, we're also thinking about the lengths of road in between the intersections as well. So this really defines the study area for the detailed study. And it's important to know that we are aware of the new school that's coming in, and perhaps some increased enrollment. So that'll all be figured into the study process. Next slide.
I think there might be a delay on your end, Bill.
Yeah, there must be. Okay, thanks. Yeah, the congestion. So one of the things, key thing we're looking at is congestion. And here are some maps that where we map out level of service for the different movements at the intersections. Level of service is really a grading scheme, A to F, just like a report card, if you will, but it reflects the amount of delay that you experience. So A through C is pretty good. You're not going to notice a whole lot of delay and congestion. But when you get up into the D, E, and certainly F, that's where you start to see you can't make it through the signal in one cycle, for instance, and you see longer queues. The image on the left here, we see a lot of yellow and orange around the key intersections there of Carden and Campbell Highway. So you're probably familiar with experiencing some delays there in the morning and evening commute peak hours. Then the image on the right is where we plug in the future volumes that are projected, and we start to see more yellow and orange and red. So the more orange and yellow and red you see indicates increasing congestion. So we already know going forward there's going to be more congestion, so we need to get out in front of this from a planning perspective to start to figure out how to address this most effectively. Next slide. Bit of delay on my end. Here it is. In addition to congestion, we're thinking about safety in the corridor. Are we experiencing crash issues? Is the corridor overall safe to drive, walk, and bicycle in? Next slide. We have started the process of mapping crashes. So what you see here are a couple images in the corridor where each dot represents a crash that's occurred in the last 5 years. And what we look for is concentrations of crashes. They tend to indicate problem areas, and you'll see some of those as you get through kind of the thick of the village there, Carden and Campbell Highway, and moving out to the east there, east of town. And each dot there represented a different type of crash. Now this graphic here is a different way of looking at it. It's called heat mapping. And this is where we've mapped the intensity crashes. So we start to see places along the corridor that have the highest crash history. The red indicates the higher crash history. So they're around Carden and again around Campbell Highway. And then also interestingly to the image on the left side where Village Highway comes in from the west there. We see a concentration there. So these are just some of the things we're looking at and thinking about. And again, we want to hear from you about your observations of the corridors, the people who use it frequently. Next slide. Pedestrian safety. So we're also looking at, is it an inviting, comfortable environment and safe environment to walk in, to walk throughout the corridor. Next slide. Apologize for the delay here. This graphic, those yellow circles are highlighting crosswalks through the core of the village there. And the point of this slide is this historically, evidently, has been where it's felt people want to cross the road there. So part of the question is how comfortable and how safe do you feel doing that? Are these the right places to cross? Or are there other places that are frequently crossed by pedestrians? Slide. So, of course, when we're thinking about walking, we're thinking about sidewalk conditions. Ideally, the ideal sidewalk has at least 5 feet in width with no obstructions. When you get below that, you start to experience problems. Say people in wheelchairs have difficulty moving through sidewalk areas that are 3 feet wide or less. And of course, you want to be able to have two-way traffic on the sidewalk, pedestrian traffic. Where do you think the sidewalks need improving, and what might help make, again, the overall walkability of the village better? When we think about walkability, this graphic here, the orangish circles show activity centers such as schools and commercial core. Not all of them, but a lot of the retail, commercial, institutional uses. And the hatched area on the graphic there, this shows the residential uses. Again, not all of them, but it represents concentrations of residential uses throughout the corridor. And ideally, it would be comfortable for the residential areas to be able to access the commercial and institutional areas. So, think about where you might want to walk and how you might want to get around on foot or bicycle. And we'd love to get your input on that. Also, when we think about the corridor as a whole, we're looking at traffic congestion, safety, multimodal mobility, but we're also thinking about, is there a need to beautify the corridor in terms of streetscapes? These are great improvements to help enhance the overall sense of walkability. There also can be drivers of economic activity. So it helps a commercial district look more vibrant and could attract more, again, economic activity, improving the tax base and just improving the overall quality of the village. So we'd like to hear your thoughts about that. Right. And as we seek your input, of course, this is one opportunity tonight. We're here at the very beginning of the study process, and we have a survey tool that's available. It's very effective, and David Cook from VDOT is going to give you a tour of the survey tool.
You ready to share your screen, David?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Phil.
Okay. Pass it over to you.
And I want to confirm that everybody can see the CVTPO homepage.
Yes.
All right, good deal. So if you go to cvtpo.org and go to plans and programs, you'll find the Village Highway Study. This is where the study page currently lies. And from there, you can go and click on this link right here that'll bring you to the survey. It's called Complete the Virtual Survey here. When you open that up, it'll bring you over to this survey. This is currently live, and anybody can go in and take this survey right now. you'll hit begin. And the first screen, it's kind of a welcome screen that kind of orients you to the study, gives you a little bit of background about the study, kind of what we're looking to accomplish in this study, and gives you a little bit of framework of where we want to go with this study, and what kind of input we're kind of seeking for this study as well. So looking at safety improvements, looking at corridor access improvements, looking at congestion improvements. You can kind of scroll through here and read a little bit about the corridor. We know that it carries about 10,000 vehicles a day. And what we're looking to identify are operational access and multimodal and safety improvements. And the types of improvements may be intersection, lane configuration, school access improvements, access management, and bike and ped accommodation. So once you've kind of read through this, you can begin the survey. And just to let you know, everybody, that the survey is mobile friendly. So if you're taking this on a mobile device, it works very well. The survey is really built to be friendly on social media platforms and mobile devices. So after orienting here, you're going to go ahead and click begin. This will bring up an introduction about the current slide that you're on. So with this slide right here, we're looking at issues and priority ranking. So you're going to basically click and drag your top priorities for your various improvement types throughout the corridor, and what kind of things you would like to see done to make it safer, to improve access, to improve geometry, and improve walkability and bikeability. So we're going to ask you to click each one and drag it above the line and go ahead and rank. And if you notice here, it brings up the ranking. And if you look on the right, it also provides a little bit of information about each type of improvement. So if you're not too sure about roadway geometry, what we're looking at there, basically that's going to be intersection improvement, modifications to lane configurations, or pavement width. And additionally, if you do not see one in here you would like to add, you can always suggest another down here at the bottom and submit that as well. After you're done with this, your next task is going to be looking at a map. So in the map exercise, you're going to be looking at different individual place markers. And what you can do is you can drag and drop these individual markers onto the map where you know there are different issues. So up here at the top, we have 5 different map markers that represent individual issues. We have congestion, safety, accessibility, multimodal, and anything else that you can think of. So what we're going to do is you can actually zoom in on the map, and you can see in green here where the corridor is located. And feel free to drop your marker anywhere along the corridor where you know that there are different congestion issues. So for example, you can drop it here at the 501-24 intersection right near the commercial center of Rustburg. If you know of an existing congestion issue there, you can drop your marker. Additionally, there is different field information you can add to basically give it different kinds of information and provide more information about the map marker that you dropped. So we have a couple of different drop downs in congestion. That includes when does it most often occur. So you can go in there and specify if there's a time of day that you know you typically have congestion at this location. You can go in and specify the time of day, and also in what direction are you experiencing this congestion as well. So at this intersection, we're currently at Route 24 and 501. And then if you know of any issues additional, you can say experiencing congestion at different hours. And then hit submit. Additionally, we have safety. And this one also has different drop downs where you can provide additional information. For safety, we have speeding, congestion, aggressive or distance driving, sudden stops and rear-end crashes, like a pedestrian or bike facilities, roadway hazards, road maintenance, sign and pavement markings, or other. When does a safety issue occur? Again, you can drop the time of day or just leave it blank. Additionally, you can provide more information as you see fit. The other markers include accessibility, which includes things like difficulty walking in the corridor, challenges riding a bicycle, difficulty making left turns, difficulty accessing businesses, vehicles blocking the entrances, through travel, mobility issues, and too many entrances and exits. Finally, we have multimodal as one of the features you can drop. This includes walking, biking, transit, carpool, vanpool, or other. The other issues, if there's anything in here that is not being covered, you can drop this and provide a comment and leave feedback on that. We ask that you drop at least 3 markers, but you can drop as many markers as you like anywhere within the vicinity of the corridor. Once you've completed the map, you'll go to the next task. This is where you begin your standard survey. So with this may look very familiar to a lot of other surveys you've taken, where you have various checkboxes and drop-down options. For the initial part of this, we have a box that asks about corridor use and frequency. With this, it will ask you how often to use the corridor in the study area under a typical condition, under typical conditions. This would be the different options include daily, a few times a year, a few times per month, a few times per year, and less than 1 time per year. With this, we ask that you select one option. For the next question, it's going to ask about what are the reasons you travel along this corridor under typical conditions. For this, you can select as many as you like. After you've completed corridor use and frequency, please go on to congestion. And under congestion, it's going to ask you 2 questions. The 2 questions include, when do you experience congestion under typical conditions? Check all that apply. Again, you can click on as many as you like when you experience congestion issues. The next question is going to ask, where do you experience congestion under typical conditions? And this is going to be where specific locations where you experience congestion, either commuting to work or dropping off your child at school or going shopping or going out to eat. The next tab is going to address accessibility. So what accessibility issues do you experience when using these corridors under typical conditions? So with this, you can check all that apply. They include things like difficulty making left turns, through travel, too many entrances, difficulty accessing schools, and access is not an issue, among others. When do you experience accessibility issues under typical conditions? This would include different times a day that you can select. Again, you're going to get a little checkbox here that'll alert you when you have completed a tab. Under safety, it's going to ask you a couple of different questions about safety, in which you can check all that apply in this top question. So what safety issues do you experience when using the corridor? These can include speeding, lack of pedestrian or bike facilities, roadway hazards, among others. When do you experience safety issues along the corridor? Again, you can check all that apply. For the final tab, it's going to ask you a little bit about multimodal accommodation in the corridor. So what modes of travel do you use when traveling along these corridors? With this, you can check all that apply. Personal vehicle, school bus, walking, there are many options for you to select. What multimodal facilities are needed along the corridor? You can check all that apply, including sidewalks, shared use path, bike lanes, transit, or other. For the final task, this is going to be a wrap-up slide. You're going to see a little thank you message with a little bit on what to do here. These are basic demographic questions. These questions are all optional, so you do not feel like you need to go in and answer, but they will be helpful for future studies in capturing the demographics of the people taking the study. Do you live or work in the study area? So there's going to be a drop down with a few different options, including living within 5 miles of the area. I work within 5 miles of the area, live and work within 5 miles of the area, or I live beyond the study area. After that, we have some demographic questions, including that on gender, race and ethnicity, age, and then finally, how did you hear about the survey? If you're accessing the survey on social media, there will be a link in the top right-hand corner that will bring you to the study homepage when you click on that. If you click on the logo, this will bring you to the homepage of the CVTPO website. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I guess, Bill, you're bringing up the final couple slides.
Yeah, can you see that?
Okay. For the moment, it didn't went away.
I'm got it
See
up.
it?
Yeah, we can see it, Phil.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So as you can see, we're looking for your input tonight. This is the first of 2 public meetings. We'll come back, or after this meeting, we will develop some draft recommendations, and I expect should be late January, early February, we should come back with a second public meeting where we will want to share those with you all, get your feedback and input on those. And then after that second public meeting, we will move towards finalizing the study. So with that, I think now is the time that we will turn it over to the attendees to ask questions and provide feedback about concerns and ideas.
Yeah, so we'll just remind you, if you'd like to ask a question, you can use the raise hand feature, and then we'll be able to unmute you, or you can put your question in the chat box. Or your comment.
Also, if you want to vocalize your responses, you will have to unmute yourself. We don't have the power to unmute you until you've first unmuted yourself. Otherwise, you can just, like Ada said, type it into the chat.
We would also be open to hearing just your experience in the corridor. You know, even if you don't have any ideas about what could be done, you know, any experience that you have would be helpful for us to hear.
Looks like we have some questions coming in.
A request to unmute, or is it a question typing?
Yeah,
John,
so the
Hardy asked.
question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, one attendee asked how many people are attending the meeting. We have 10 attendees. Someone else asked if the link will be emailed with the survey. Yes, we can email all of the attendees tonight a link to the survey after this meeting. I'll just go.
I also went ahead and provided a link in the chat box. So anybody in the audience can bring that up and click on that link. It'll bring you to the survey. And feel free to share that with anybody you know that lives in the area.
I just brought this slide back up. If anyone's having a hard time with the question functionality or unmuting themselves, or if they want to find the chat box again. Okay. Bill, looks like we've got a question for you here. As we look at the intersection with Rocky Road, can we propose a widening, or will recommendations just be for 24 and 501? I believe that's asking if we would ride in Rocky Road. Bill, you're muted.
All right. Yeah, we are looking at the corridor holistically, so that could be on the table if we do find the need to, if we're seeing increased traffic and activity, that would not be out of the question then to address the portion of Rocky Road near Route 24.
Okay, got another question here. I'm concerned about the lack of room for large trucks making right-hand turns from 501 east at the stoplight by Hardee's. Trucks do not have enough space to make that turn. That's something we'll be taking a look at.
Yeah, geometry of the intersection certainly. We've certainly observed a lot of truck traffic through the village there. So that will definitely be figure into the recommendations.
And these, the questions in the chat box will be recorded, so we'll have these as notes to look back to when we're developing the project recommendations, just so everyone knows.
I assume that last question was coming down Campbell Avenue, leaving the city, coming into the village, making a right to go towards Saybrook Neal. That was the heavy right turn movement.
Yeah, they just responded yes.
Okay, great.
Just to spur some comment here. We would love to hear your experience about walking and bicycling in the village, if you feel safe crossing at crosswalks, or if you feel there are other places that you want to cross and haven't been able to, or if you are a bicyclist. We would love to hear your feedback on how safety and walkability and multimodal access has impacted you.
Okay, we have another question. Will you be reaching out to local businesses in the village to get their input, or are you expecting them to get in touch using the survey?
That's a good question. You know, here in COVID times, it's a little different, right? Normally we have a public meeting right there in the village, and we'd have some signs up to come attend it. So it might be something we want to talk about with Mr. Harvey from the county there. Perhaps we could think about how to continue to get the word out about the survey. And if anybody wants to contact us directly, we'd certainly be open to that.
Okay, we have a comment about walking. I don't feel safe walking due to the high speed of traffic. It's very hard to cross the intersection at the Hardee's. It's good to know. Curious to see if that lines up with the crash mapping that we've done.
All right. Crossing by Hardee's. Any thoughts about streetscaping, beautification, other physical improvements?
Okay, we've got a request. Please work with the school to prioritize students safely walking from the middle school to the public library, the Rustburg Public Library after school. good thing to note.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Great input.
Okay, got another one. The road coming out of the food line there doesn't have markings to direct traffic to go left, straight, or turn right. Okay.
We'll take a look at that. Sounds like it causes some confusion, I would guess. Marked.
Another question, are there opportunities to work with AEP to get electricity underground as part of the streetscaping plan?
That's a good question. You know, undergrounding utilities is surprisingly expensive, but overhead utilities and the visual clutter that it presents is just the major detractor from any community as far as its visual appearance. You know, this study is going to address streetscape just in terms of demonstrating that there's support for it and putting some general concepts out there for consideration. It's not the full focus of this study, but we do want to touch on it. This study will focus more in depth on congestion, safety, and walkability. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, the streetscaping goes along with walkability. So I guess the most direct answer is that we'll show through the study that there is support for pursuing such a thing, and future efforts can build on that.
Okay, and going back to the lack of striping coming out of the food line, yeah, there's just confirmation that it's especially confusing when you're trying to go straight toward Campbell Highway. And another comment, would love to see streetscaping and beautification done to make our village more appealing.
Okay. Other thoughts, ideas, concerns?
Just to get a little bit more content going here, maybe we would love to hear from you about where you've experienced congestion and at what times of day that would be. We have the data, but again, hearing your experience and the things that you find are really helpful. So yeah.
That's another comment. I would like to see lighting plans for safety of pedestrians walking in the evening as part of the streetscaping plan.
So noted. Yeah, that's a good point. I know there's some of the as in this picture here, you see that one light coming off the utility pole. So there's lighting in one part of the corridor, but it could definitely be beneficial to have pedestrian scale lighting and more lighting throughout the corridor for safety reasons and just general walkability. Great thought.
So another comment, I think it's expressing that there's already adequate streetscaping, as you can see in this picture, with sidewalks on both sides, the crosswalk. Bill, do you want to maybe elaborate more on what streetscaping can do, or what how the streetscape could be improved beyond what we can see here?
Sure. Yeah. When we talk about streetscaping, it could be a number of elements, and it's really a lot of elements that come together to help put a different ways of saying it, maybe a more finished look out there, or enhance the sense of place. But it could be textured sidewalks, different materials you can use. It could be stamped concrete or actual bricks. It could be aesthetic lighting poles throughout the corridor, maybe period style. You know, there's a lot on the menu to pick from as far as styles. It could be on side streets where you have sufficient width. Maybe you have some bulb outs to shorten the crossing distances. Where you have room, you might try to incorporate street trees. Just some of the types of features, and then of course benches and trash receptacles are often part of the streetscape package. So Phil, you might go back to the some images on that one slide where we just bring up the topic of streetscaping.
Okay, yeah, I just pulled that up.
Okay, I'm still seeing the citizen input, but is it? Here we go. The lag. So these are elements of streetscaping, and this is it's a 3-lane road, similar to your road, just in terms of having 3 lanes. Building envelope might be a little tighter, but you'll see the sidewalks in the period style lights. We're on the right side there. I'm looking at the image on the left. You see the street tree. Here they have actually done away with the overhead utilities. They've either moved them a block back on a parallel corridor, or they've invested heavily in undergrounding. I don't know. It's just a stock photo. The image on the right there.
It's a little heavier on the placemaking side of the streetscape with the customized sign
features that come to mind. And what would happen is, again, yeah. So what, this study won't get into selecting elements. Again, we'll demonstrate support for the concept with some representative type elements shown. But what happens with the streetscape study is the focus study. It brings all the stakeholders together to pick out various treatments, picks out colors and types of lights, and types of benches, types of treatments, and then that precedes a design. So that's actually a next step. But again, in the study, we want to document if there's support for such a thing.
And one thing I will add to streetscaping that you can see on the left-hand side is the wayfinding. So wayfinding signage is going to be basically directional navigational signage, and that can be branded to kind of fit the narrative of your community through coloring schemes and through the written material and through the city emblem or the village emblem. So that's kind of a way to enhance the visual appeal while also providing navigation for people driving, walking, cycling, using the corridor. And that's another aspect of streetscaping that's also very important.
Okay, we got 2 more questions. How big of a project is this for the area? Meaning, what kind of undertaking is this for the region?
Not sure how to answer that. It's a planning study. I'm not sure the context of the question exactly.
There's also a follow-up question of wondering about what is the need for this study?
Sure.
Just maybe I could go back to the volumes slide.
Yeah, the need for this study really hinges around trying to make a safe travel environment, trying to get out ahead of any congestion issues, trying to reduce the number of crashes that occur, and again, trying to identify opportunities to make the the study more walkable, more friendly for pedestrians. And when you put that all together, that also culminates in a more vibrant village area, more economic activity, overall more livable.
And then to rephrase the question of how big of a study is it, they were asking how much will this impact the people in Rustburg?
Yeah, that's a good question. So every major investment, every major transportation investment starts with a planning study. Planning studies are used to identify these types of improvements that can then be fleshed out to greater detail and put into grant applications. So I will cite a study from Appomattox that actually the MPO with VDOT conducted how many years ago? I don't know, the last 7 or 8 years, I believe. And it was a $25,000 planning study, and it went into the grant process. And David and Rick, please correct me if I'm inaccurate here, but I thought it was about a $10 million grant or so. Was awarded for various improvements along the old Courthouse Road corridor. So again, it's a investment on the front end and planning to identify these types of solutions that can be carried forward into grant applications. So you know, it could be millions and millions of dollars down the road that result from the ideas that come from this study and get documented.
There's another comment underscoring how important it would be to address the overhead utilities to achieve a better streetscape in the village.
Yeah, agreed. Yep.
Okay, there's another question. After the planning study is performed, who will be trying to obtain the funding streams for the identified projects, and who will they apply for funding with?
Sure. Is that Ada, you want me to handle that, or is it?
No, I can take that. Yeah, I was going to say, so after the study is done, it'll really be up to the Campbell County and the Board of Supervisors to decide what they would like to do as a result of the study. This is basically just providing the framework for what we want to do going forward. And, you know, we can apply for funding through VDOT programs or, you know, other streams of funding if the county would like to pursue that. Of course, the PDC will be happy to assist with that as needed, but it will really be up to the county to decide how they move forward.
Also throw a question out there as a prompt. Are there any places that people feel uncomfortable walking to currently that you maybe would like to be able to walk to? Feel free to put that in the chat box. It's good information for us to know.
Yeah, we've heard a few comments that from the middle school, there's a lot of students that walk over to have their parents pick them up over at the library or at other locations. So, yeah.
you know, when we do these meetings in person, of course, we usually have big, long aerials. You can walk around the aerials and look at the different parts of the village, the pictures and such. But I do appreciate everybody trying this web format. It does make it a little more comfortable in terms of being able to come to the meeting without leaving your house or office. But definitely a different format.
So another comment about the need to address speeding in the study, project recommendations.
Is there a particular area of the corridor, the village, that people think is the bigger problem? Maybe more towards the post office or
All the way through is the response.
all the way through. Fair enough.
Yeah, one thing I would just say to that is that typically with some of the walkability improvements that we can make, sometimes that will help with speed, whether that's, you know, raised crosswalks or signalized crosswalks or other improvements that I know Bill can speak to more. Sometimes that does help slow some people down. So, you know, it's a good way to incorporate solutions for both.
Yeah.
Someone's asking about radar. I'm not sure if that's referring to police enforcement or the this is your speed radar signs.
That's I guess it's the your speed signs that are the radar signs.
Sheriff's Department routinely puts out a message board that tracks your speed and tells you whether you're speeding or not, and most people are.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to kind of go back to the question that was asked earlier as far as how big the project is for the area. You know, before any studies are accomplished, there's got to be some rationale and build up in order to support the study and the money expenditure aspect. So, you know, there's a number of intersections throughout the corridor that are identified as potential for safety improvements, which means there's a number of accidents at those locations. The corridor itself is a commuter network. So you've got 15-20% commuter patterns coming up 501 from Brookneal, going into and out of Lynchburg. You've got residential growth going towards Concord. In addition, you've got heavy freight movement that's moving through the corridor. And on top of that, you have 3 schools through the corridor, plus also being the county seat. So, you know, as far as the importance to the area, I mean, this is a major confluence point here for a number of different reasons. And in order to maximize the potential for the best type of improvements to the corridor, all of the studies that we do now look at it from a multimodal perspective. So we look at walkability, we look at bicycle use, you know, we look at all those different capacities. In addition to that, we recognize that economic development is an important part of the corridor as well. So the alternatives that are developed, all of these things are taken into consideration to, again, to maximize the efficiency of the corridor, but provide for safe accessibility, ingress, egress, and still support the economic development.
Rick, someone's asking, following up on that.
I didn't say we need more access points. You know, when you look at the corridor, there are a number of access points on the corridor that serve a number of different economic development, you know, points, schools, and so forth. So didn't say we need more access points, but we have to look at the access points in order to develop a contiguous plan for the corridor that works in conjunction with each other from start to finish. My name is Rick Youngblood. I work for VDOT. And I'm the district planning manager.
You have a comment. Gina, could you please elaborate on what you mean by more than two ways? Very well, maybe explain the importance of that. In the meantime, we have another comment or a question. Are there any opportunities to improve notification of drivers that emergency services will be entering the road during an emergency? We have a firehouse and a public safety station in the village.
We'll make note of that. Yeah, that's a good thing to look at. I agree.
Yeah, I think what Gene is saying is primarily you've got 501 from Lynchburg, you've got 24 from Concord, 501, 24 from the Brookneal area. Outside of that, all the other access points into and out of Rustburg are basically geometrically challenged secondary roads that you know, provide access, but they're not the most feasible use.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the backside, most of the roads don't really, as far as the roads coming out of Rustburg area back towards the east side, there's no real direct connection or any type of back access, any type of back frontage road or anything like that. And John, you brought up the emergency services. You know, I think that's between the school transportation department and then the emergency services. I think they're going to be two of the major stakeholders that we talk to along the corridor in regards to what their needs are, because I know as far as the ambulance service, that direct connection is through that intersection at 501 and 24.
Well, I would just like to say, as we wrap up here, we will leave it open for questions for a few more minutes if there's anything else that you guys have, but we really encourage you to share the survey with people that you know in the community. As I said earlier, the recording of this session will be available on the CVTPL website, which you can see listed below. And if you have any additional questions or comments or concerns, you can email me directly. My email is listed on the screen there, and it's also available on the TPL website.
You'll also receive a follow-up email from this webinar service with Ada's email and a link to the survey. I believe you'll get that sometime tomorrow. Not sure when.
And as Ada said, once you get that email and that information, share it with your neighbors and so forth, so that we can get other people involved. I know I've received a number of phone calls directly. You know, this is a new process that we're going through from a VDOT perspective, as far as the virtual environment. And it has its challenges, but it's also effective considering the use of social media and so forth. So please share this information out as you've got time to get comments in.
And David, can you remind us what the deadline for the survey is, when it will close? Sorry to put you on the spot here.
Yeah, I'm bringing it up right now. It's going to end on December 21st. So you have from now until December 21st to engage in the survey. So right about a month, and then that'll wrap up. So yeah.
Well, if there are no last minute comments or concerns here, I think we will wrap up for this evening. Again, any additional comments, you can send me an email, and we really look forward to hearing your feedback.
Okay.
Okay, not seeing any more questions.
I see one more comment in here, Phil.
Oh yeah, I just came through. In the middle lane between the Post Red House Road and Hardee's be better utilized?
That's yeah, great thought. We'll be taking a look at that, thinking about where turn lanes are needed. Again, digesting the crash information, and it's good to get this comment that helps us to know where to put some extra emphasis and focus. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Still here, sorry.
Curious, are there any participants who might have missed the demonstration of the survey, that set of slides? If so, let us know. We can ask David to give that tour again. Again, that's going to be a great way to get input. If you might have missed that slide.
Bill, maybe we can also, if you wouldn't mind sharing the slides, we can also put those on the website for folks that may have missed the beginning but don't want to watch the whole recording through. It's getting a little long
Certainly.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Want those in a PDF or a PowerPoint? Just a
PDF's
PDF
probably
for file
better for
size.
easier to read.
Yeah, so it's 7:40 now. We'll keep this open, I would say, until 7:45 just for any last minute questions. But again, thank you all for your time. We appreciate you coming out and we look forward to hearing your survey responses.
Got one last question here, or one more question, I should say. Any improvements planned for Rocky Road when the new middle school is finished?
That is still being looked at and discussed, so I don't think there's a definitive answer to that yet. But to expand on that question for just a second, there's a standalone study underway looking at traffic associated with the school, and that's going to feed and be an input into this corridor study. I believe that other study is getting close to wrapping up. So I say it's no firm answers there yet. It's still under review.
Okay, well, I just want to say a quick thank you to our panel. Forgot to do that earlier. Thank you all for coming out. Yeah, thank you all again for coming, and we look forward to your feedback.
Thank you, Ed.
Hey, good night.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ada. Thank you, team.
Thank you. Have a good night.